And who was it that could discern light and dark, if someone was light and dark?
Chad.
Did Alex ever say anything to you about what he would want done if he became a zombie?
He told me, Sulema, if I ever turn into a zombie, just shoot me in the face.
From zombies to an autopsy to a chilling prediction of death that turned out to be true, we are breaking down the next batch of disturbing moments in Chad Daybell's murder trial. This is part 2. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Unfortunately, the disturbing moments did not end with our last recap in the Chad Daybell murder trial. No. There are many, many more. This, of course, is the trial out of Idaho where Daybell, a religious Doomsday-themed author, is charged with the murders of 3 people. His wife, Tammy Daybell, 49 years old, died in October of 2019 in the family home. It was first believed and relayed by Chad that she died of natural causes, but as you're about to see in a little bit, that may not be so true. And then we have 7-year-old Joshua JJ Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan, the children of Daybell's current wife and co-defendant, Lori Vallow Daybell. These kids' bodies were found on Chad's property in June of 2020, 9 months after they disappeared. Lori, already convicted, sentenced to life in prison for her role in these killings. Alex Cox, Lori's brother, who we talk about a lot in this saga, who we're about to talk about a lot, he's dead, died of an apparent blood clot, but it is believed that he was an active participant in these events as well, even perhaps the one who physically killed and buried these kids. Prosecutors argue that Chad and Lori killed these people in their lives to not only be free, to live happily ever after together, but also to reap the financial benefits of Social Security and insurance payments. And unlike Lori's trial, Chad faces the death penalty if he's convicted. After all, he's facing first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder charges, amongst others as well. Now let's talk disturbing, but let me also say very important moments in this trial, important moments, important pieces of evidence in this case from the last time that we did an update. And there's a lot. And honestly, talking disturbing, how could I not start with Zulema Pastenis' testimony? Now, for anyone who followed Lori Vallow Daybell's trial or have followed this saga, you know who she is. She was married to Lori's brother, Alex Cox, and she talked about how she connected with Lori and Chad, met Chad at a conference in 2018, saw that the pair were hanging out. Lori was flirtatious with Chad, him giggling, even though both of them were married, Chad to Tammy Daybell, Lori to a man named Charles Vallow. We will get to him in a second. But a big theme of this case is that there are these religious beliefs that maybe were used as a justification to kill. Kill those in the couple's way. Light spirits versus dark spirits, possession, zombies. Here's Zulema talking a little bit more about this.
They started teaching that a person could become let me back up. When a person passes away, that there was a small time where the body is still a viable body and it could be occupied by a dark spirit or a demon, and that because the body no longer had the spirit that was originally there, but it was being occupied by a demon, that then that spirit could not move to the spirit world, that it would go into a limbo.
And at that lunch at Firebirds with Melanie Gibb and Lori, did you learn anything about Charles?
Yes, this was the first time that Lori talked about someone being possessed by a dark spirit or a demon. This first time that I heard the idea of someone passing away and having this small window of time where a dark spirit or a demon could come into the body and take over the body. And she said that that's what had happened to Charles, and that Charles was now possessed by a dark spirit or demon named Ned.
Had you heard the term possession before?
Yeah, I had read about it in the scriptures before.
Had you heard it talked about in the way Lori was describing it?
No, not at all.
And do you know where Lori got that information?
That information came from Chad.
Few things here. First of all, the defense has been trying to create the narrative that these beliefs, yes, they may be odd to you and me, but they're actually consistent with LDS. There's not something nefarious here, not something that was concocted by Lori and Chad. Prosecution could not disagree more, saying, no, no, no. These are offshoot extreme beliefs. They are different. But most importantly, and this is another big point being put forward by the prosecution, is that this is emanating not from Lori, but from Chad. That is the big point, that he is the leader of all of this. He is manipulating everyone around him. Now, we have to remember that Charles Vallow was killed by Alex Cox in July of 2019. At first, it was claimed that Alex was acting in self-defense for him and Lori, but now Lori is actually charged with conspiracy to commit Charles's murder. She faces that charge in Arizona. So there's a lot more to what happened that evening. Awfully strange and coincidental or weird that there's this belief that he's possessed and he dies. Now, to be clear, Chad is not charged with Charles's death, but evidence of that shooting is coming into this trial, ostensibly to show this pattern and motive by the couple to get rid of people in their way. But from there, Zulema talked about Chad's very eerie predictions.
And at the time you were there in August, were JJ and Tylee there?
Yes.
Do you recall anyone talking about JJ dying young or dying soon?
Yeah, during this meeting, Chad said that JJ was going to die young, that he was probably going to die soon, and that he was going to come right back to Earth as Colby's son.
And who is Colby?
Lori's son.
So did Chad and Lori say they'd both been exalted before?
Yes.
Was there any indication that Tammy may die?
Chad said that Tammy was going to die early, and that he had related before that he had a portal in his house where he would get information or communication from the spirit world, where he would get instructions and information and knowledge, and that through this portal he was getting information such as that Tammy was going to die soon.
Had you ever heard of portals in the way Chad was talking about them?
No.
I've always thought that this is some of the most damaging evidence. If the jury believes this, in my mind, this puts Chad right in front of all of this. He predicts that these people die and they end up dying. As much as the defense is separating Chad from Lori or trying to do that and what she did, he's the one allegedly saying all this stuff. By the way, talking about Tammy Daybell for a second, Zulema recounted how they tried to do a casting of Tammy, again, Dark Spirits. And again, this is Chad's wife. Well, this night that they did the casting, she ends up hearing a very strange conversation, or overhears a strange conversation between Lori and somebody else on the phone.
After the casting, did you hear Lori on the phone?
Yes, she was on a phone call afterwards.
How did she appear?
she was extremely angry. She was irate. I had never seen her that upset. She was like it's scary angry. And she was calling whoever she was on the phone with, she was calling this person names like moron, idiot, stupid, and very, very, very angry.
And after she got off that phone call, did she say anything to you?
Yeah, right after she hung up the phone, she said, idiot, can't do anything by himself.
Now, remember, someone allegedly tried to shoot Tammy Daybell the days before her death. We heard the 911 phone call from her. It's been speculated that that person was Alex Cox. So is that the person that Lori is on the phone with? The person she's calling an idiot because he didn't carry it out. He didn't kill Tammy. But continuing on with Zulema, listen to what Lori allegedly told Zulema about the kids.
I said, hey, where's Tylee? And she said, well, she had to be free, meaning Tylee had to be free. And when I went to ask her to explain what that meant or what she meant by that, she put her hand against my face and said, don't ask.
Did she ever provide you any additional information as to where Tylee was?
No. She had mentioned a couple of times that Tylee had been possessed by a dark spirit named Hillary
Do you know where Lori received that information?
from Chad.
Do you recall hearing anything about JJ being attacked by demons?
Yeah, before they moved to Rexburg, Lori was saying that in the middle of the night, JJ was being attacked by dark spirits and that they couldn't get him.
I don't think I really have to say much there, do I? I'll tell you what, I will discuss more of Alex Cox because, again, he is believed to be the purported hitman in this case, the man who killed the children, buried their bodies, potentially shooting at other people, possibly connected to the death of Tammy Daybell. We know he shot and killed Charles Vallow. Now, listen to Zulema's disturbing conversations with Alex, including after he killed Charles Vallow.
I asked him, are you okay? And he asked me why. I said, well, because you just shot somebody yesterday. And he looked at me and he said,
Judge, I'm going to object at this point. It's hearsay.
Co-conspirator, Your Honor.
Based on the response of the state, I find it is an exception, so that's overruled.
so he was a zombie.
Did Alex seem to truly believe what Chad was telling him?
100%.
Do you recall him saying anything in regards to help he'd provided them?
He said, can you believe that they're being such jerks now that after I helped them, now they don't even want to talk to me?
Had Alex relied on Lori and Chad for answers?
Oh, for everything.
Had he relied on them for guidance?
Yes.
How would you describe Alex and Lori's relationship?
They were very close to each other. Chad had told Alex that the only reason why he had come to this earth at this time was to be Lori's protector. And he really took that to heart and believed it.
He also allegedly told Zulema that he thinks he's going to be their fall guy, assuming he's talking about Lori and Chad. But you hear his apparent devotion to these two, that he's Lori's protector. Would he do anything for them, anything for Lori? And what would he do for them? Would he kill for them? Hey guys, I want to take a quick sidebar from Sidebar to talk to you about something. Look, this is a very sad and tragic and disturbing case, and it makes you think about how scary the world is. And it is. There's no way of saying it otherwise. It is. And one of the scariest things that can happen to you, one of the most unpredictable things, is if you get hurt, if you get injured. It is very traumatic. It is very confusing. Where do you turn? Well, that's why I want to call out Morgan & Morgan, our great partner and sponsor here on Sidebar. This is a law firm that you would want in your corner because they are specialists in this area. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm, and for a reason. They win a lot. They have secured multi-million-dollar verdicts and settlements all across the country. In fact, they secured a $120 million verdict in one of the first personal injury trials post-pandemic. And by the way, in that case, there was an offer of just $20,000. That's it. Yeah, Morgan & Morgan, they don't settle for lowball offers. They are going to fight for your legal rights, and they're going to fight for what you deserve in compensation. And one of the best things about Morgan & Morgan is how easy they make this whole process for their clients. From submitting your claim to uploading documents to signing contracts to talking to your whole legal team, it can all be done on your smartphone. That's it. Seeing you if you have a case only takes a few minutes. And there's no upfront fee, by the way. No, you only pay them if you win, which is amazing to think about. So if you're injured, you can start by easily submitting a claim at forthepeople.com/LC Sidebar or by dialing pound law. That's pound 529 on your phone. Now, in summation about Zulema, very important testimony for the prosecution overall, but John Pryor, Chad Daybell's attorney, cross-examined her, put the focus on a lot of this, but it was actually coming from Lori, not Chad, that Lori was flirtatious with Chad, the idea of she manipulating him. He brought up Zulema's immunity agreement with the government to testify, so is she credible? And that with all of these religious beliefs, Zulema never heard Chad nor Lori saying, we have to kill people. So it's good points there by John Pryor. But let's move on to some more disturbing moments. And talking disturbing moments, let's talk more about the death of Tammy Daybell. So we heard from those in her life about how chilling her death was, and more importantly, how sudden it was.
I want to draw your attention back to October 19th of 2019. Did you learn of Tammy's passing that day?
Yes, I did.
How did you learn of it?
My mom called me. My mom called me on the phone. And she was crying hysterically and told me Tammy passed.
Why was that confusing to you?
Just didn't make any sense.
Why not?
She was so young and healthy.
When you observed Tammy, did you ever notice her appear to slow down?
No,
Did you ever notice any change in her activity level prior to her death?
no,
Did she ever complain to you about any health issues?
no,
Did you ever observe Tammy have any shaking fits?
no,
Did you ever observe Tammy faint?
no.
And what makes this all the more chilling is what we heard from the Utah medical examiner, Dr. Eric Christensen. He had this to say, that Tammy's death was anything from natural.
What did you determine the cause of death to be?
We ruled her cause of death to be asphyxia.
What did you determine her manner of death to be?
We determined her manner of death to be homicide. We also didn't find any natural disease that would explain her death. Her heart was completely normal. Her lungs were normal, except for some fluid buildup in them. Her liver, kidneys, all of her organs were normal. So we did not identify an anatomic or pathologic explanation for her death.
During Tammy's autopsy, did you find any physical signs of seizure activity?
We did not.
Very different from Chad's alleged accounting to the coroner that Tammy had died from a seizure. Now, in cross-examination, John Pryor used the bruises on Tammy's body to cast doubt on the idea that she was held down and killed, that she could have died from a toxic drug cocktail that she took. Whether it's possible a heart arrhythmia or seizure was a possibility at all trying to raise reasonable doubt about what happened to Tammy Daybell. But talking Tammy a little bit more, talking disturbing, one of the craziest things in this whole case, one of the strongest pieces of evidence against Chad and Lori, is that they get married in Hawaii, 2 weeks after Tammy's death? Bad enough that they're having an affair and she dies, but then that? Well, how about this interaction I'm about to show you? Playing again a bit of testimony from Alice Gilbert, Tammy Daybell's friend. Listen to her interaction with Chad after Tammy died.
So just shortly after Tammy's passing.
Yes.
And Chad indicated to you he didn't want you to come to his place, but he'd come to yours.
Yeah. He said, "Oh, I'll come over to your place." So we said, okay.
Did you ever end up seeing where Chad was living in Rexburg?
No.
And did he in fact end up coming to your place?
He did.
And did you end up having a conversation with him at that time?
Yes. He sat at our kitchen table and I had made cookies and thought that, we would make it nice. And he said that he found the woman he was going to marry. And we were absolutely stunned.
Yep. Kind of weird, right? Let's say he has nothing to do with his wife's untimely death. Still a weird reaction. No? Suspicious? Talking weird statements and reactions in our discussion of disturbing moments from Chad Daybell's trial, here's a sampling of people that Chad and Lori interacted with after the kids went missing. Now, remember, prosecutors say the kids are already dead. They're already buried. Clearly, Lori already knows this, right? She's been convicted. The evidence in this case suggesting Chad knows as well that he was a part of this whole thing. So you're going to hear right now from a real estate agent and friend of Chad's, talked about building a second house on the property after Tammy's death, but you'll hear more from that. Then you're going to hear from Alice Gilbert again, and you're also going to hear from an insurance broker.
And back to the conversation that you had with Chad about where the kids were. When you asked where the kids were, whose children were you referring to?
The kids that were missing, Lori's kids.
His wife Lori's children. And what did Chad tell you about his wife Lori's children and where they were?
He looked me straight in the eye and he told me that they were okay, and when this all was going to be, when everything came out, that everything was going to be just fine.
And that was in March of 2020?
That's correct.
I asked her if she'd been married, and she said yes, that her husband had died in December of a heart attack. I asked her if she had children, and then Chad said that she had recently had a daughter that had passed. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I said, "How many?" And she said, "Thank you." And I said, "How many children do you have?" And she kind of stammered and said they were stepchildren, and I did not get a definite answer on that.
When Chad said that she'd recently lost a daughter, did Lori say anything to correct that or change it?
No.
When we got to the income, he said, "They confiscated my computer, so I haven't been able to pay myself yet."
And what was your reaction to that?
I said, "They?"
Okay. And did he explain who he's talking about?
He said, "The FBI."
What did you ask him?
Back then, the application states, is there anyone else in your household, whether they need coverage or not? Is there anyone on your tax return, whether they need coverage or not? And so I just went through those normal questions.
And in that line of questioning with him, did he ever mention JJ or Tylee?
No.
Having learned about JJ and Tylee's missing status, did that cause you any concern when you were processing this paperwork for Mr. Daybell at that point?
Yes.
What was the concern?
It was all over the news that they were missing, and him saying that just validated that they were.
What about concerns relative to the insurance policy?
It made me think we may have a fraudulent life payout.
Explain that, please.
I was worried that Tammy's death may have not been an accident and that the life premiums may have been paid out when they shouldn't have been.
If the jury believes these statements and conversations occurred, Does this seem like someone who is totally in the dark about what happened to these kids? Or does this seem like Lori and Chad know exactly what is going on here? Which brings me to the testimony of Melanie Pawlowski, and I'm going to finish up with her. So Melanie Pawlowski is the niece of Lori Vallow Daybell, and she was around Chad and Lori in this circle of religious discussion. Interesting note, she was married to a man named Brandon Boudreau. He actually testified that Melanie was being influenced by Chad and Lori. They end up deciding to get divorced, and he said in October of 2019, before Tammy dies, but in the same month, after the kids are killed, by the way, someone tried to shoot him. Again, presumably Alex Cox. Crazy aspect of the story. Melanie Pawlowski is now testifying in Chad Daybell's trial. She didn't testify in Lori Vallow Daybell's trial. She wasn't permitted to. Apparently, she improperly listened to testimony and read up about the case, which is something that she wasn't supposed to do or allowed to do as a witness. So now we have her here at Chad Daybell's trial. And here is Melanie talking about her conversations with Lori that were quite revealing and, yes, very disturbing, considering what we know now.
At some point after they moved to Rexburg, did you end up visiting them?
Yes.
When you arrived, was JJ there?
No.
Was Tylee there?
No.
Did you ask Lori where Tylee was?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
I got a few different answers, but one I remember clearly was that she was with a friend from college at BYU and that she was kind of doing her own thing. But that's one of the main answers that she would give.
Did you ask where JJ was?
Yes.
What did she tell you about JJ?
She said she had hired a nanny there in the area and that the nanny helped a lot with JJ.
In October, do you recall going on a trip with Lori?
Yes.
Where did you go?
To, sorry, you said October?
Yes, October.
We went to Hawaii.
Do you recall going somewhere with her prior to traveling to Hawaii?
Yes.
And where was that?
Missouri.
When you went to Missouri, was Tylee with you?
No.
Was JJ with you?
No.
Did you ask Lori where they were?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
I think she said that the nanny was helping with JJ, and I don't think Tylee at the time needed like a babysitter. She was old enough to kind of be independent. Or maybe it could have been too that Tylee was helping with JJ. I can't remember exactly.
Did something happen back in Idaho while you were in Hawaii?
Yes.
And what was that?
Tammy Daybell passed away.
Did Lori head back to Idaho after that?
Yes.
Did you head back to Idaho right away?
No, I stayed longer.
Was someone else supposed to go on the trip with you and Lori to Hawaii?
I think I found out later that Alex was going to come with us on that trip.
Why didn't Alex go?
Lori said Chad had something that he needed help with.
Very eerie and arguably incriminating answers about the kids and an explanation for why Alex didn't come to Hawaii. Could it be that he had to help Chad with the alleged murder of Tammy Daybell? I don't know. Something to think about. And she also testified that Lori spoke with her about how someone could become possessed or become a zombie, and that, again, the body would have to die if someone were possessed with a strong enough entity. The darkness was too much. Does that sound very familiar with what we're talking about? And she said, like we heard before, that this idea, in her mind, possibly emanated from Chad. And we're going to end with this. A recorded phone call between Melanie, Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow Daybell. This gives you a sense of everything that we just talked about. This is from December 2019, after the deaths of JJ, Tylee, Tammy, and Charles Vallow.
But isn't Rexburg like the place of safety when all things happen?
Yeah, but there's been lots of prophecies about major turmoil there. The plague's going to sweep through Rexburg. Civil unrest. I had a vision of Second East where McDonald's is and everything. Just chaos, people starving, fighting. So there is still a stretch of bad times coming to Rexburg before city of light. So we had to kind of pave the way.
Very strange and disturbing indeed. That's all we have for you here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. As always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.